I'm Mark Golub, and in the news, here at home, the memorial service in Dallas, Texas for the 5 slain law officers, 4 policemen, a transit cop, murdered by a sniper shooting from a building in the heart of the city during a rally protesting the deaths of 2 African Americans by police officers in other states. And all of America mourns with the families of the slain policemen. Our hearts go out to them. They are victims of a form of domestic terrorism. And the reality of Israeli life is that Israeli families are having to bury their loved ones, their children, on a far too ongoing basis. They know the same kind of pain. The nation knows the same kind of pain. And most recently, Israel has had to deal with the tragic murder of Hallel Yaffa Ariel, a 13-year-old girl who was stabbed to death in the middle of the night as she slept in her bed by a terrorist murder in Kiryat Arba, the Jewish community adjacent to Hebron on the West Bank. Hallel, a lovely, beautiful young girl, was laid to rest in the ancient Jewish cemetery in Hebron. And as our country comes together today through a memorial service for the slain officers in Dallas, it seemed like all of Israel was with Hallel's family at her burial service. Her mother, Rena, made this statement at the hospital where Hallel passed away. She said, "My daughter was simply asleep, calm and serene. She was happy. And the terrorist came to her bed in Kiryat Arba and killed her. I want everyone to see our pain and to come console us. Hallel, may your memory be a blessing." And we all understand this is not the first child Israel has had to bury, nor the last. But somehow this particular murder has touched the soul of Israel in a different, in a more profound way. Not that every child, woman, or man whose life has been taken by a terrorist murder is not profound and life-shattering for the family. And the searing pain will last many days and many nights to eternity. But the brutality of this murder and the sense of vulnerability has brought attention to Hallel's death in a way that has shaken the nation. It reminds me of the tragic murders in Itamar. Well, to give us a more personal understanding of the significance of this terrorist murder and how it's being experienced and coped with by the people of Israel, I'm so honored to have a friend on our JBS phones from Israel right now, someone you've seen often on JBS, Yishai Fleisher, who is now the spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron. Yishai, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so very, very sorry, as is the entire JBS audience, for your community's pain and for having to deal with the murder of Hallel.
It's good to hear you, Mark, and it's good to be with you. It was a horrific crime, and I think it's very important to make sure that we don't talk about it in the language of tragedy. It is a tragedy, certainly, but a tragedy oftentimes is a word reserved for things like a car accident or a hurricane coming through town.
Yes.
And something happens. This was not a tragedy. This was a horrific crime, a murder that was motivated by a jihadist milieu that is now ablaze in the Middle East and certainly close to home here in Israel. And this is a supremacist ideology which sees the Jewish people, or even many other minorities, as not having value, as something to destroy. And she was killed by a jihadist ideology and by a young person, a 17-year-old terrorist murderer who had succumbed, now believed this brutal ideology. I like to add something that some people don't like to hear, and that is that even this murderer, this young murderer, who, let me add, completely brutally kept stabbing her. He even flipped her body over, kept stabbing her until he completely verified that her life was destroyed. Even he is a victim. He is a victim, and that the victimhood that his story is about about a child who, from inception, has been taught this racist ideology, the supremacist ideology, and basically a form of child abuse. He was molded into the kind of person that he became. I'm not taking away his culpability, God forbid, because a person is still responsible for their actions. Yet at the same time, it's important to understand that there is very much this milieu, this atmosphere in this region, and this child, this murderer, grew up in that, and he took Hallel's life so brutally.
Yishai, whom do you blame for, who's responsible for molding this murderer into someone who would come in the middle of the night and stab a young girl to death? Who's responsible?
The first thing, by the way, I just want to clarify, it was actually early in the morning. It was actually her parents had left the house. She was sleeping in late a little bit. It was about 8:44 in the morning, and everybody else was already out of the house, and she finished 8th grade. She had just started summer vacation, and she was sleeping in. She had a big performance, a dance recital the night before, and that's why the terrorist didn't have anybody to oppose him when he jumped into the house, and also was only able to kill Hallel because there was nobody else in the house. With regarding to the blame, look, there's as in all things, there's many layers, and I'll give you the two simple layers. The first layer is obviously the jihad writ large, which is in this region, and the Palestinian Authority, which is a gateway to jihadism. It is quite supportive of these ideas. It teaches them in the schools and in the media. And by the way, this murder was immediately lauded by the Palestinian Authority, by the mother of the murderer. So, it's very much like you don't have to go far to see the society and the societal acquiescence to these actions. Let's put it this way: condemnations in the Arab world, and certainly in this local Arab world, were very, very few. And very slow in coming. That's one level.
Okay, hold on now. Most of the time when the Palestinian Authority is discussed by American Jews or by the American administration, it is not associated with the jihadist mentality that is fueling, for example, ISIS and what we see as radical Islamic global terrorism. You are making a connection between the jihadist mentality, philosophy, and the PA, aren't you?
Well, that's just because I listen to what they say. That's all. It's not really because of a great intellectual leap that I'm making. I just read the translations of their daily Facebook pages, their broadcasts.
And what are they saying, Yishai?
They're saying, "Oh, great martyr has done a great act yet again of killing the Jews. We will liberate Palestine through arms. We will kill the infidel. We will rule this land from Dan to Beersheba, from the Jordan to the Mediterranean." And it's the classic full. Now I also, and I think we talked about this once on when I was in New York, and that is that. I do not make a big distinction between secular jihadism and religious jihadism. It could be Islamic in its characterization, or it could be more, a liberation language, which is more secular. But in any case, they call for the killing of Jews, for the getting rid of the Jews from this land altogether, and establishing a Palestine on our land. Their maps reflected, their broadcasts reflected, and if anybody needs affirmation of that, they could turn to Palestinian Media Watch, which basically issues emails every single day of what's going on in the Palestinian Authority media. And I guess that answer that I just gave leads me to the second part of what you asked earlier, which is who is at fault here? And the first fault was with obviously the people who are calling for murder and are creating an atmosphere where that's respected. But the second party which is at fault here is the state of Israel and all of us, which see this going on. This incredible, hateful monster is growing. A seething monster is growing within our midst, and yet we refuse to see it. We prefer to, put a fig leaf over it and kind of say, keep wishing it away or keep wishing that it's better than it's better than the reality. It's something that we imagine it to be, and we do not attack it at its core. And what's happening in Israel today is that basically the Israeli security apparatus is very busy catching the terrorist as he's coming out of the mosquitoes coming out of the swamp, but nobody's draining the swamp. And there's a horrible, deep ideology that's being inculcated in the mosques, in the schools, and on Facebook and social media. And we're not attacking that. We're just kind of catching the ricochets, the mosquitoes that come out of that, and try to stop them from perpetrating acts, but we're not willing to really engage the problem in a deep way. So to some extent, certainly our prime minister and all our great country certainly didn't stab this little girl. But at the same time, if you allow this to grow within you and you kind of you avert your eyes, well, you are negligent, and that's a kind of culpability.
Okay. First of all, Yishai, what would it mean to you? What does it mean to drain the swamp? What would you like to see the Israeli government do?
Well, I think that if in the United States of America there was an entity that was calling for sedition and was actively planning murder, I would expect the FBI to crack down on the perpetrators, would-be perpetrators and conspirators, and arrest them. Here, I'm talking about going. I'm not talking about a war with the Arabs. I'm talking about the jihad. The jihad is an ideology. Not everybody at all is promulgating that ideology, but those who are need to be found and need to be dealt with if they're incarcerated or whatever it is. And that could be in the mosque or in the schools. Not far away from where I live, there are
Okay,
schools.
but you're saying that it includes the Palestinian Authority, that they are fomenting this jihad ideology. What do you want Israel to do? But my understanding is the Mossad is always trying to find, through its own sources, through intelligence work, those who are fomenting the kind of incitement that leads to this jihadist philosophy and mentality and then behavior. But you started by saying, this is what you see coming out of the Palestinian Authority. What do you want the State of Israel to do in that regard?
Mark, it's in places that are not the Palestinian Authority. It's right here in Jerusalem, in eastern Jerusalem, in neighborhoods called Isawiya or Ras Al Amud and Silwan. This ideology exists. And in the Palestinian Authority, where we don't have security control right now, still the army sometimes makes incursions. Look, Mark, we are responsible for defending the Jewish people. I don't believe that the justification for the state of Israel rests on the Holocaust. I think that we are an ancient people connected to this land in an ancient way. Still, though, I do think that the Holocaust should give us pause to realize that the state of Israel has an element in it which is supposed to defend the Jewish people from anybody who would want to perpetrate that kind of Holocaust again. Our job is to really, keep saying that phrase, never again. And so if there's an element of force within the country or within the Palestinian Authority, or maybe in southern Lebanon or in Gaza, or maybe across the world, maybe it's in Iran, that wants to destroy the Jewish people and is actively planning to do it, it's not an ideology. Somebody has the will and the ability, and the know-how and the fortitude to do it. We have to get them. That's the nature of it. That's Zionism. Zionism is that we're not going to rely on others anymore. We're going to attack our enemies, and we're going to defend the Jewish people. I think that we have to kind of shed certain complexities and get back to a simple understanding that we will never allow this to happen again. And frankly, for this little girl, maybe it wasn't 6 million, but this little girl was killed for being a Jew, and for that family, this was a Holocaust.
You do not feel, by the way, this was simply a Palestinian trying to make a point that the state of Israel is somehow subjugating and brutalizing the Palestinian people, and it was against the occupation, and he, all he wants, and this is what you hear all the time here in America, all the Palestinian wants is Israel to take its boot off the neck of the Palestinian, and then, this kind of terrorism would end.
Well, that's certainly the refrain, and we do hear that often in America and in other circles as well. That is the jihad has cloaked itself in the language that we as Jews are sensitive to, including myself, and they have created the illusion and the pretext that this is about self-determination. But if you listen to their own language and their own rhetoric in the mosques and the Facebooks and in the schools, you realize that this is nothing more than jihad dressed up in that language that we're sensitive to, and which weakens our resolve to actually attack it. So your question is spot on in the sense of, well, what are we facing? Are we facing a movement for self-determination, for liberties and freedoms on the other side, and therefore the people that we're facing are in a sense just like us, and we should understand and know where they're coming from as Jewish people who've been persecuted, and we somehow have ended up on the side of the persecutors? Is that what we're dealing with? Or are we dealing with a global jihadist movement which gets rid of Yazidis and Copts and other Christians or other minorities or other Muslim groups that don't fit exactly their ideology? Is this much more connected to Hamas, to Hezbollah, and to ISIS and to Al-Qaeda? Is it much more of that variety, simply pretending to be the former, but is actually the latter? I certainly believe it's the latter, and I really think that it comes from just paying attention to what they're actually saying and not what they're trying to characterize themselves as. Some of the videos that Hamas is, and by the way, this young terrorist came from the Hebron region, from the town of Bani Naim, which is a Hamas town. These are Hamas voters. These are Hamas supporters, and the images and the glorification of the murder was completely in line with jihadism and nothing to do with Martin Luther King and self-determination and the living side by side as two nations.
Yishai, and you do know, there are going to be people listening to you on JBS right now all across America, Jews, who are going to say, the problem with Yishai Fleisher is he's been influenced by a far right-wing ideology. They're going to characterize you as someone on the far right who thinks that a violent response to violence is appropriate, that you're not understanding how it is necessary for Israel to change its policies. You are even critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, and within certain circles here in America, Benjamin Netanyahu is not respected or liked at all. He's seen as part of the problem, that he's gone along with a government that's moved to the right. When he installed Lieberman as defense minister, it was a further sign to people here that he does not really want to work with the Palestinians and find a peaceful resolution. And you're going to be characterized in that basket as if you do not want a peaceful resolution and to live side by side with the Palestinian people. What do you want our viewers to understand about you and your position?
First thing, I want to make it clear that I have a tremendous respect for our government and for the Prime Minister. I think he's in a lot of ways a great man personally. As a democratically minded person, I have sometimes I'm at odds with certain positions of the government, but on the whole, I think we're dealing with great people and a great state and a great government. I just want to make that clear. With regarding to my positions, I think it's a little small to talk about it as being my positions. In your question, you talked about a government moving rightward, which is really another way of saying that the people of Israel are moving rightward. And a lot of articles, a lot of people, commentators have mentioned that there's this move to the right. And within your question, there's also the issue of, well, American Jewry's response is that they're not moving as much to the right, and they see kind of Israel moving away from them. All I could say to you is that the average Israeli has not become more right wing. What he has is that he's, in a pragmatic sense, he has seen the efforts towards two-state solution and towards peace that comes through land exchange, giving away land, land for peace, as being a formula that doesn't work any longer. It's been tried and it's failed. It's important to remember, Mark, that Israel's landmass is really very tiny, and to split it up and to especially deal with the very thorny issues of the fact that the very places that are claimed by Palestinians as theirs are the ancestral homeland, the historic homeland of the Jewish people, and the fact that we've faced terror every single time, and I mean every single time that we've pulled out of any piece of land, including now the Sinai. We have faced a kind of cancer that has come from those places. Look what happened in South Lebanon. Now there's 200,000 rockets aimed at us. Look at what's happened when we pulled out of holy places, historic places like Shechem or Nablus, when the tomb of Joseph was destroyed. Look at what especially happened in Gaza, where the Jewish people retreated from an area that was also part of the historic homeland, and yet now we fought 3 wars in 6 years. So the pragmatic average Israeli has come to a new pragmatic understanding that this is just not going to work, especially given that the Palestinian Authority doesn't even seem to try to make it work. So therefore, I think that we're starting to move towards new ideas, new creative ideas about how to move forward. Now, two-state is probably leaving the scene, and I'm saying this as a kind of avant-garde. That's what's really happening on the ground, but the policymakers have yet to fully catch up to it. With regarding to peace, I want to make it clear that I do not serve the God of peace. I am much more partial to Israeli security and Israel surviving as a strong Middle East country. I believe that peace comes through deterrence in general, and talking all the time about peace in the face of the jihad is just not the way to deal with it. Much more important is to talk about that we will never give up, that we will never lose, that we were never going to really move, that we're always going to be resolute and strong. And that kind of broadcast is much more effective in this region. Finally, I just want to tell you that our response is not just warlike. I want to tell you that today, the Ariel family, the victims of this horrible murder, staged a kind of peaceful protest at the entrance to the Temple Mount and called on the Prime Minister to give us dignity back in our most historic and holy place. They asked to rename the gate that Jews go to the Temple Mount, which is now called the Mugrabi Gate, which is really an Arab name, to change it to the Hallel Gate, which is the daughter's name that was murdered, and also the word praise. It's the Praise Gate. And there was 1,000 people that came out today to the entrance of the Temple Mount to have this peaceful protest. I was there as well, and I spoke as well. We want Jewish rights. We want Jewish dignity. We want our tiny piece of land, and we want to live in safety, and we deserve that. We deserve that. And I don't think that we are the unjust party here. I don't think we have to give up anything. I think we have to be strong in the face of people who would like to see not just a parcel of land given to them, but the whole kit and caboodle.
That was beautifully, beautifully said, Yishai. By the way, you know, the U.S. has come out with a report, while it, on the one hand, does say that Palestinian incitement is an obstacle to peace, it also says Israelis' ongoing settlement policy is an obstacle to peace. When you hear the U.S. say something like that, how do you feel and how do you respond?
Well, I don't, I have a great affinity on a personal level and as a Jewish and Israeli person on a national level for the United States of America, a country that I think we all owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for many, many reasons, and I could talk about it personally and nationally as well. At the same time, I think that the United States of America um, should not be too quick to meddle in the affairs of the Middle East. It's a very complex and thorny and long issue, but I do also think, on the other hand, that the Jewish people and the Arab peoples will be able to solve this issue with time and on our own. And I don't like so much the continuing fixation or even obsession by the Europeans, sometimes even by the American administrations and State Departments on solving this issue. Um, um, I, when I look at the United States of America, I think about places like Chicago, which has seen about 200 murders since the beginning of 2016, and I see this wave of violence that's taking Europe and the United States. I sometimes think to myself, let the United States and others take pause and deal with their own issues. We haven't had as many murders as just Chicago in the year of 2016 on both sides altogether. And so I think to myself, step back a little bit and give us a little bit of daylight. People don't like that word, to have any daylight, but I think we do need some daylight here.
Hmm.
And I also think that um, I think that this quote unquote settlements, it has to be understood and asked, why is it that the Jewish people are settling? Why do they do it? Does anybody ever ask themselves? The first question I asked is, why the obsession? And the second question is, why do you think we're doing it? If we are we Israelis so obtuse to the international community's requests and demands? Are we so greedy that we constantly need to take somebody else's land away? Like, just ask yourself, what the hell are the Jews doing? Like, why are we in these settlements? And the answer is, it's not because of avarice. It's because we really believe that this is, and you don't have to agree, but we self identify ourselves as the ancestral people of this land. We are coming back home. Those quote unquote settlements are the most beautiful and organic and natural of Jewish communities on the ancient homeland. And so we're going to, even though some of the world doesn't understand that, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep coming back to these lands. We're going to keep, quote unquote, settling in Bethel, right, in Beit El or in Hebron. This is where or East Jerusalem. This is where we're from, and this is where we want to be, and this is where we've waited to be for 2,000 years. So to talk about the settlements as being either illegitimate or unhelpful is to not understand the soul of Israel, the heart of Israel. I think it's incumbent upon people who care about this issue to ask themselves first and foremost, why are the Jews there? Why are the Jews there? And once you get that question, kind of in your head, then think to yourself, why don't some people want the Jews there? And I think that it's time for policymakers, commentators, and thinkers to start coming up with a new paradigm, because we're really not going to leave. And every time we've left, it's been disastrous. And we're just, this time, Mark, we're not going to leave Hebron.
I understand. Yishai, you know how wonderful it is to always talk to you, whether it's in studio or on the phone from Israel. I thank you for the work you're doing. I think you say it as well as anyone. I wish you personally kol tuv hatzlacha, and I hope that the Ariel family knows some kind of comfort. And you and I will continue the conversation, but I thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Mark, and hello to all the folks out there. Keep being strong. Israel's going to keep being strong together with our hands connected across the Atlantic. Thank you.
Good for you. Thank you, Yishai. Yishai Fleisher, spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron. We're really out of time. He is just wonderful. My thanks to Sloan Copeland, our director, Serge Goldberg, production coordinator, Dennis Golan, our editor, JBS associate director, Dara Golub, and of course our producer, Carol Lilienthal. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. Be well, my friends.